I stood in the living room I'd spent 2 years perfecting, watching champagne glasses catch the afternoon light. Every corner of my parents' house gleamed with fresh paint and careful restoration. The hardwood floors I'd personally refinished reflected faces of relatives and neighbors gathered for the housewarming. My savings account sat at zero, but seeing Mom's smile made it worth it. Or so I thought. A toast to Elaine, Mom announced, raising her glass. My chest swelled with pride. The child who ruined everything she touched finally did something right. The room fell silent. Confused chuckles rippled through the crowd. Dad stepped forward, grinning. This finally makes up for all her childhood disasters, doesn't it? My face burned. Guests shifted uncomfortably, unsure whether to laugh. I froze, champagne glass trembling in my hand. This was supposed to be my moment. Our moment. Mom's voice cut through my thoughts, bright and cheerful. And of course Elaine knows she won't be living here. This house is for adults who can take care of things. My heart stopped. The room spun. 56 years old and I was still their punchline. I followed them into the kitchen after the guests filtered out, my hands shaking. What did you mean out there? Mom didn't look up from loading the dishwasher. Oh sweetie, don't be dramatic. Dramatic? You just announced I'm not living in the house I renovated. Dad leaned against the counter, arms crossed. You owe us this, Elaine. After everything you put us through growing up. Put you through. Mom dried her hands slowly, deliberately. She pulled a folder from the drawer and slid it across the granite countertop I'd installed. We had our lawyer draw this up. It's just a formality, really. I opened it. The words blurred together, but the header was clear. Gift deed transfer agreement. This says I'm giving you the house. Because you are, Dad said flatly. You're signing it tonight. And if I don't? Dad's expression hardened. Then we'll remind people what you were really like as a kid. Every embarrassing detail. Every mistake. The phone calls started the next morning. First Aunt Paula, then my former coworker Beth, then Mrs. Henderson from down the street. Is it true about the antique lamp? Paula asked carefully. My stomach dropped. That was 40 years ago. I was 8. Your mother says it was priceless. A family heirloom. After I hung up, Mom walked past my bedroom with a satisfied smile. That's when I understood. They were launching a campaign. By afternoon the stories multiplied. The school fire drill I supposedly triggered at 12. The checkbook I allegedly lost at 14 costing them hundreds. Incidents I barely remembered, suddenly resurfacing with devastating detail. Dad cornered me in the hallway. The lamp belonged to your great-grandmother. You destroyed it playing ball indoors after we told you not to. I remember it differently. Then you remember wrong. That evening my friend Jessica called. Elaine, people are talking. Your parents are telling everyone you were difficult. My chest tightened. Difficult how? They're making you sound dangerous. Irresponsible. The law office smelled like leather and old books. Attorney Vincent Hayes reviewed my documents with careful attention, occasionally making notes. Miss Carter, this is straightforward. The deed is in your name. You paid for all renovations. You own the property completely. Relief flooded through me. So they can't take it? They have zero legal claim. He leaned back. However, they've created an interesting situation. Meaning, they're living there now, which gives them certain tenant rights. But more importantly, they're clearly attempting to manipulate you through social pressure and emotional coercion. I twisted my hands together. What can I do? Hayes studied me thoughtfully. I can propose a strategy. It's long, methodical, and completely lawful. But it requires patience. I'm listening. He outlined the plan carefully. Document everything. Remain calm. Let them believe they're winning. Build an unassailable case. They'll overreach, he said. People like this always do. I returned home and said nothing about the lawyer. At dinner I was quiet, almost agreeable. Mom exchanged glances with Dad, their expressions triumphant. You're being very reasonable about all this, Mom said sweetly. I'm thinking about what's best for everyone. That seemed to satisfy them. They relaxed, discussing their plans for their house. I nodded and cleared plates, playing the obedient daughter. For 3 days I documented everything. Their statements about ownership. Their demands. The stories they spread. I recorded conversations on my phone, saved text messages, organized receipts. Then Tuesday afternoon my phone rang. An unfamiliar number. Miss Carter? This is Derek from Prestige Construction. I'm confused about a work order your parents called in. They want us to do some structural modifications, but they mentioned no permits were pulled. My blood ran cold. What modifications? They want to remove several load-bearing walls. Combine rooms. They're talking about a complete interior redesign. Don't do anything, I said quickly. I'll be right there. I arrived to find a work crew standing in my carefully renovated living room. Dad was gesturing at the walls, explaining his vision. The beautiful exposed brick I'd restored was marked with chalk lines. These walls need to come down. Open up the space, Dad instructed. Excuse me, I said loudly. What's happening? Dad turned annoyed. We're making improvements. The layout is too closed off. Those are load-bearing walls. Removing them requires engineering approval and city permits. We'll handle that later. A worker stepped forward nervously. Sir, we really should have permits before. I'm the owner, Dad interrupted. I'm giving you permission. Actually, a new voice said from the doorway, I need to know who the legal owner is. A man in a city inspector's jacket stood in the entrance, clipboard in hand. I received a complaint about unpermitted work. Someone wants to explain what's going on here. The inspector's name was Cole Martinez. He walked through the house, documenting everything, his expression growing increasingly serious. These modifications require permits, engineering reports, and inspections at every stage, he said. Who authorized this work? I did, Dad said confidently. I own this house. Actually, I said quietly, I'm the legal owner. My name is on the deed. Martinez looked between us. Then you're responsible for these violations, Ms. Carter. She didn't authorize anything, the contractor interrupted. These people called us directly. Martinez wrote rapidly. Ms. Carter, you're being issued warnings and fines. Any further unauthorized modifications will result in more serious consequences. After he left, Mom screamed. This is your fault. You brought the inspector here. I didn't call anyone. You're sabotaging us. Dad's face was purple. After everything we've done for you. Martinez's final words echoed in my mind. Any further unapproved changes could lead to condemnation. The neighborhood campaign began within days. Mom made rounds to every house on the block, tissues in hand, explaining how her ungrateful daughter had abandoned them and sabotaged her own parents. I watched from my car as she performed for Mrs. Reeves, dabbing her eyes dramatically. The lies were spreading like poison. But then something unexpected happened. Mr. Chin from 3 houses down knocked on my door one evening. Elaine, I think you should see something. He handed me his phone. On the screen was a video clearly recorded from his porch camera. Mom and Dad stood on his lawn laughing. We guilt her into renovating the place. Mom's voice was clear. Took every penny she had. Now it's ours. She always was easy to manipulate, Dad added. Still is. My hands shook. Can I have a copy? Already sent it to your email. There are 3 more videos. They've been saying similar things to everyone. Hayes reviewed the videos in his office, playing each one twice. His expression remained professional, but I caught the slight smile. Miss Carter, you now hold every legal and moral card in this situation. The videos prove intent to defraud. The code violations create liability. And the smear campaign demonstrates malicious conduct. What now? Now we apply pressure. Legally. He drafted a letter on firm letterhead. They'll receive this tomorrow. It requires immediate repairs to code compliance and a mandatory inspection within 2 weeks. They'll panic. Exactly. He looked at me seriously. Are you ready for their reaction? I thought about the journal entries, the childhood stories weaponized against me, the decades of manipulation. I'm ready. The next morning, a process server delivered the notice. I wasn't there, but I heard about it. Mom apparently opened the door in her bathrobe, read the first paragraph, and started screaming. Dad called me that night, his voice tight. Your mother collapsed. We're at the hospital. I drove to the emergency room, my mind racing. Despite everything, they were still my parents. Despite everything, part of me still cared. Dad paced the waiting area. They're running test. She just fell. What did the doctor say? They're checking her heart. We waited in tense silence. Finally, a tired-looking doctor emerged. "Mr. Carter? Your wife is fine. Her vitals are normal. All tests came back clear. But she collapsed. She may have felt faint, but there's no medical cause. She's healthy." Through the door I could hear Mom's voice, shrill and demanding. The doctor looked uncomfortable. "She's asking for her daughter." I found her sitting up in bed, looking perfectly fine. When she saw me, she grabbed my hand. "Elaine, you have to stop this. The stress is killing me." "The doctor said you're healthy." "I feel terrible," she whispered. But her grip was strong, her color normal. This was a performance. Dad appeared in the doorway, speaking to Mom but clearly wanting me to hear. "We need to get control over Elaine before she ruins our lives." The next attempt came through certified mail. A legal document claiming they'd discovered an old agreement where I'd promised them the house as a gift. The signatures looked suspicious, the dates impossible. I called Hayes immediately. "They forged something. Bring it in." At his office, he examined the document carefully. "This is fraudulent. The notary stamp is from a company that didn't exist at this date. The signatures don't match earlier documents. And most importantly, the paper stock is current, not from years ago." "What happens now?" "I'll file a formal response. This actually helps us. Attempted fraud is a serious matter." The rejection came within days. Whatever clerk reviewed their submission immediately flagged it as fraudulent. The local courthouse apparently made a note on their file. Hayes called with an update. Their lawyer withdrew from representation. Meaning their attorney realized they were asking him to participate in fraud. Time for the next move. The certified letter I sent was formal and cold. "You are hereby required to halt all modifications, repair all damages to code compliance, and cease unauthorized use of the property. Failure to comply within 14 days will result in formal eviction proceedings." Mom called within an hour, screaming, "You can't do this to your own parents." "I can and I am. We raised you. You manipulated me. Everything we did was for your own good." I hung up. 5 minutes later, she called again. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. "You'll regret this. I will make sure everyone knows what kind of daughter you are. You haven't seen revenge yet." I saved the voicemail and sent it to Hayes. He responded with one word, "Perfect." I couldn't sleep that night, so I returned to the house with my key. The place was dark. I crept upstairs to the attic looking for documents, proof, anything that might help me understand how we'd gotten here. Behind old Christmas decorations, I found a box labeled, "Personal. Do not open." Inside were my mother's journals, decades of them, leather-bound and carefully maintained. I sat on the dusty floor and began reading. The early entries were mundane. Grocery lists, vacation plans, complaints about Dad. Then I reached entries from my childhood. "Elaine broke another dish today. I told Carol it was the antique serving platter even though it was just Walmart. She's so clumsy, might as well get some sympathy from it." My breath caught. I flipped forward. "Pulled the fire alarm at school today while Elaine was in the bathroom nearby. Principal called." I acted shocked. "They'll think it was her. 12-year-olds are easy to blame." I read through the night, hands shaking, tears streaming. Page after page of calculated manipulation. Incidents I'd felt guilty about for decades, carefully orchestrated by my own mother. The checkbook incident. Hid it in Elaine's room, then reported it missing. The lecture I gave her was priceless. She actually believed she lost it. The broken lamp. Bumped it myself but blamed Elaine. She was playing nearby, so it was easy. Barbara says I'm terrible, but kids need to learn responsibility somehow. Every childhood mistake she'd thrown in my face was a lie. Every story weaponized against me was manufactured. She'd been gaslighting me since I was 8 years old. One entry stood out. "Sometimes I watch Elaine working on her college essays and feel this strange jealousy. She's going to leave and be successful. She's going to be everything I couldn't. I need to make sure she remembers she's nothing special." I took pictures of every relevant page. I requested a meeting at their house. My house. They agreed, probably expecting me to surrender. I arrived with Hayes, the journals, and the photos. We sat in the living room I'd renovated. "I found these," I said simply, placing the journals on the coffee table. Mom's face went white. "Those are private. They're confessions." I opened a marked page. Should I read them, or would you like to explain why you've been lying about me for 40 years? Elaine, I can explain. The fire alarm. You pulled it and blamed me. Silence. The textbook. You hid it in my room. Dad looked at Mom confused. What is she talking about? I read the entries aloud. Each one landed like a hammer. Mom dissolved into tears, but they looked different now. Caught not sorry. I never meant. She whispered. You meant every word. I closed the journal. You systematically destroyed my self-confidence because you were jealous. You turned my childhood into a weapon. Dad sat heavily, looking older suddenly. Is this true, Patricia? Mom sobbed into her hands. I was going through things. Postpartum depression, my mother dying. For 40 years? I asked. That's your excuse. I didn't know what else to do. You were so confident, so capable. I felt like a failure. So you made me feel like one instead. The room was silent except for Mom's crying. Finally, Dad spoke. What happens now? I looked at them. These people who'd raised me, damaged me, manipulated me. Part of me wanted to scream. Part of me wanted to walk away forever. Now you get one chance, I said quietly. You fix everything you broke. You follow every code requirement. You respect boundaries. Or you leave. Leave. Mom looked up terrified. Those are your options. They exchanged glances. Fear replaced arrogance. We'll fix it, Dad said quickly. Everything. We'll make it right. The inspection was scheduled for Thursday. I hired contractors to repair the damage properly, with permits, engineering approval, everything by the book. Mom and Dad watched from the sidelines, no longer in control. Cole Martinez returned with his clipboard, checking every detail. He moved methodically through each room, testing, measuring, documenting. After 2 hours, he called me aside. Miss Carter, I need to be honest. The unauthorized modifications caused structural damage. The repairs help, but this house needs extensive work to pass. How extensive? The support beams were compromised. We're looking at 6 months minimum, and the property can't be occupied during repairs. My heart sank. At all. It's not safe. I'm issuing a mandatory vacation order. Everyone out within 14 days. Behind me, Mom gasped. Dad caught her as she stumbled. You can't do this, Mom whispered. This is our home. No, Martinez said firmly. It's her home. And it's unsafe because of what you did. Mom collapsed into sobs. Dad tried to hold her up, his face pale. Where are we supposed to go? That's not my problem, Martinez said. He handed me the official notice. 14 days, Miss Carter. After that, the property must be vacant. After he left, Dad turned on me. You did this. You're being vengeful. I'm being responsible. You damaged a house that wasn't yours. We're your parents. And I'm the owner. The words came easier now. You made your choices. These are the consequences. Mom looked up, mascara streaking her face. We have nowhere to go. You're throwing us out on the street. For a moment, guilt tugged at me. Decades of conditioning screamed that I should fix this, save them, make it better. But Hayes's words echoed. They'll manipulate you if you let them. You have 14 days to figure it out, I said and walked to my car. I didn't sleep that night. Despite everything, despite the journals and lies and manipulation, they were still my parents. I thought about them, homeless, struggling, scared. By morning, I'd made a decision. Called Mom. I have an offer. Take it or leave it. She arrived within an hour, Dad in tow. They looked smaller somehow, diminished. I have a guest house on my property, I said. 700 square feet. 1 bedroom. You can stay there temporarily. Hope flashed across Mom's face. Really? Under conditions. You attend therapy, together and individually. You respect my boundaries completely. No guilt trips, no manipulation, no stories about my childhood. 1 violation and you're out. Dad started to protest, then saw my expression. We accept. And you pay utilities. This isn't charity. Mom nodded rapidly. Anything. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. These rules are non-negotiable. They moved in quietly like refugees. The guest house was comfortable but small. Nothing like the renovated house they tried to steal. The first weeks were tense. Mom tested boundaries constantly, dropping comments about feeling banished, or making veiled references to my cruelty. Each time I enforced consequences, canceled visits, withheld privileges. Dad adapted faster. He asked permission before visiting. He respected my schedule. He even apologized once, briefly, for the fire alarm incident. The therapy sessions apparently were brutal. Their counselor didn't accept excuses or deflection. Mom came home from sessions red-eyed and silent. One evening I found Dad working in my garden. "I hope this is okay," he said nervously. I wanted to help. "It's fine." We worked in silence for a while. Then, "I'm sorry, Elaine. For everything. I should have protected you from her and from myself." I kept weeding, not trusting my voice. "I was weak," he continued. "I let her do terrible things because it was easier than standing up to her. You deserved better." It was the first genuine apology I'd ever received from him. 3 months into therapy, I received a call from their counselor. "Elaine, your mother has something she'd like to tell you. Would you be willing to attend a session?" I arrived nervous. Mom sat in the therapist's office, looking fragile and old. The therapist nodded encouragingly. "Elaine," Mom began, voice shaking. "I've been working on understanding why I did what I did. Dr. Simmons helped me see something I've been avoiding my whole life. I waited. I was jealous of you. From the beginning." Tears started. "You were smart, confident, and capable. Everything came easy to you. I was drowning, in motherhood, in marriage, in my own failures. And instead of being proud of you, I felt threatened. So you sabotaged me. I needed you to fail so I could feel successful at something. Being your mother. Correcting you. It was sick, and I'm sorry." The words hung in the air. "Sorry I didn't erase 40 years. But it was something. Can you forgive us?" Mom whispered. "I don't know yet," I answered honestly. "But I'm willing to try." The house renovation took 8 months. I supervised every detail, making it exactly what I wanted. Modern kitchen. Open living space. A library with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. When it was finally finished, I stood in the living room where this all began. The space felt different now. Mine, truly mine. No ghosts of manipulation or guilt. I moved in on a Saturday. Mom and Dad asked to visit that evening. They stood in the doorway, looking around with obvious emotion. "It's beautiful," Mom said softly. "You did an amazing job." "Thank you." We sat awkwardly in my new living room. Finally, Dad spoke. "We wanted to say something. In person." They looked at each other, then at me. "Elaine," Dad began, "we spent 56 years failing you. We blamed you for our inadequacies. We used your childhood against you. We tried to steal the home you built. Mom took over. We can't undo any of it. We can't give you back the confidence we destroyed or the years we stole. But we want you to know that we see it now. We see what we did." They both looked aged, humbled. For the first time in my life, they seemed genuinely remorseful. "We don't expect forgiveness," Dad continued. "We don't deserve it. But we want to ask, do we still have a place in your life?" I thought about the journals, the lies, the manipulation. I thought about the therapy sessions, the genuine tears, the slow, difficult changes. I thought about the father working quietly in my garden and the mother who finally admitted her jealousy. "You have a place," I said finally. "But it's on my terms now." "My terms are simple," I continued. "This is my home. My life. My rules. You're welcome here, but respect is non-negotiable. The past doesn't disappear, but it doesn't control us anymore either." Mom nodded, crying quietly. "That's more than fair. And we keep going to therapy. All of us, together sometimes." "Agreed," Dad said quickly. We talked for an hour, the most honest conversation we'd ever had. They told me about their own childhoods, their struggles, the things that shaped them into people who could hurt their daughter. It didn't excuse anything, but it helped me understand. When they left, Mom hugged me at the door. "Thank you for not giving up on us completely." "I almost did. We wouldn't have blamed you." I watched them walk back to the guest house, their steps slow and careful. They looked different now, smaller, older, more human. Less like the villains I'd built them up to be, more like damaged people who'd done terrible things. 6 months later, I stood at my kitchen window, morning coffee in hand. Sunlight filled the house I'd renovated twice. First for them, then for myself. Outside, Mom and Dad worked in the garden. Dad pruned roses while Mom pulled weeds, moving slowly but steadily. They were earning their place here, contributing instead of taking. They'd never be perfect parents. The wounds they'd inflicted would never fully heal. But they were trying genuinely for perhaps the first time in their lives. I didn't destroy them with revenge or cruelty. I didn't cut them off completely or make them suffer needlessly. Instead, I'd done something harder. I'd set boundaries and enforced them. I'd demanded respect and refused to accept less. The house was mine. Life was mine. The future was mine. They tried to make me believe I ruined everything I touched. Instead, I'd rebuilt everything they'd broken, including maybe our relationship. As I watched them work peacefully in the morning light, I realized this was what justice looked like. Not vengeance. Not cruelty. Just truth, boundaries, and dignity. Finally, at 56, I was free.